Our story begins inside of the Jedi Temple on Coruscant the morning after Anakin's first nightmares of Padme, and Anakin was going to the one place where he and any other Jedi would go if they were seeking answers about the Force. Without even stopping by his own temple quarters to change out of the Jedi robes from the day before, Anakin went to the Grand Master Yoda for advice. And Anakin was actually surprised by how graciously the ancient Jedi Master invited him into his own quarters, and by how patiently Yoda waited as Anakin began stumbling through his questions about the Force. It was clear to Anakin on this very morning that Yoda had many other things on his mind. Of course he did, with the war going on and nearly ending, and yet he sat here with Anakin, readying himself for some possible meditation. Anakin took a brief second to reflect on his own relationship with Yoda. The two of them were friends, or at least as close to friends as Jedi or as Yoda could be, as Yoda knew deep down just how important Skywalker was for the fate of the galaxy. The two of them had very different approaches to life in general, and perhaps it was their power levels that kept them closely connected, but Anakin did have more of a respect for Yoda than any other council member. So, when Yoda asked what these premonitions were about, Anakin was unsure how much he could reveal without actually revealing anything. It was a tough situation, living this double life as a Jedi and as a husband, but he knew he must keep it up until at least the war comes to an end, and that meant being as brief as possible with Yoda, while still searching for answers. Anakin would tell Yoda that the dreams are of pain, suffering, and death. Yoda looked up, saying that the dark side of the Force surrounds them, all of them, in these troubled times, and he asked if these visions are of himself or of someone close to him. Anakin could only say the word someone, and his eyes turned away from Yoda. He was letting the Grand Master think that he was talking about Obi-Wan. It was close enough, after all. And now Yoda began going down the path Anakin really didn't care to hear about. The path where he says this is all a product of the dark side of the Force. Yoda said that fear of loss is a path to the dark side, and Anakin interjected, saying that he won't let these visions come true, putting enough emphasis on the word won't to make Yoda understand just how serious he was. Yoda shook his head softly, then told Anakin that whatever he fears to lose, he must train himself to let go. And this is where Anakin realized all of this was pointless. Yoda wouldn't be any help to him. He just wanted Anakin to sit back and to watch Padme die. Anakin's mindset shifted from hope all the way back to fear. But Yoda actually felt this, and this time he straightened up, pointing his stick right at Anakin, telling him he is not hearing him. This caught Anakin off guard, and he shot back that he will not just watch this person die. Yoda sighed. Then he told Anakin he was just not listening. His visions are showing him a dark future, a future where his fears of loss do come true. If Anakin learns to let go of these fears, then a different future is possible. And finally, Anakin was at least beginning to understand. These visions were being shown to him by the Force in a time where the dark side clouds the Force like never before. So, Anakin would now ask Yoda to personally teach him how to let go, and Yoda would give a kind smile, saying he will do it. Anakin would soon leave Yoda's quarters, and he actually would feel hopeful. He was grateful that Yoda didn't push him on who he was talking about, as Anakin promised Padme that he wouldn't reveal their relationship until the war was truly over. Anakin was willing to risk everything in his Jedi life to be with her. He truly didn't care who knew or what the consequences would be, but he did know for certain that the truth of their relationship would make life much more difficult for their child, and it would essentially tarnish Padme's reputation in the Senate if it were revealed while this war were still going on. Anakin would wait to reveal the full truth for now, and instead he would wait for his first lesson with Yoda on how to truly let go of those he fears to lose. That lesson would not be coming quite yet though, as Yoda had council duties to attend to, while Anakin had a newly scheduled meeting with the Chancellor himself. This was not something Anakin expected, and so, when he found himself in Palpatine's office, Anakin was surprised to hear the reasoning for this meeting. Palpatine had just been voted new powers to essentially gain full control of the Jedi Council, along with the Grand Army of the Republic. And so, instead of the Senate deliberating on where to send the Jedi and the clones, those decisions were now solely up to Palpatine for the rest of this war. And as the new effective leader of the Council, Palpatine wanted someone he truly trusted to be his eyes, ears, and mouth on the Council itself. And that person would be Anakin. When Anakin heard this, he was of course ecstatic. Being on the Council meant mastery, and mastery meant the restricted section, where he would learn everything he ever needed to know, everything Yoda would not be telling him. Palpatine truly never let him down, and Anakin would ride this feeling of excitement all the way back to the temple, only for a metaphorical bucket of cold water to be thrown all over him, as the Jedi Council told Anakin he is indeed on this council, as Palpatine's representative, but he is not a Jedi Master. And to Anakin, this felt like extreme disrespect. It felt like fear of him, like jealousy, and it made Anakin extremely angry. When he eventually did take his seat, Anakin was barely listening as Kit Fisto and Agen Kolar were assigned to go to Kashyyyk to help with the droid attack on the Wookiees. Yoda was considered for this at first, but Yoda ultimately had a reason to stay on Coruscant, and that reason was to be with Anakin. When the meeting concluded, Yoda would ask Anakin to stay here alone, and Anakin watched everyone, including Obi-Wan, leave the council chambers after giving him one final look. Obi-Wan was actually in a rather fine mood, as just before this council meeting with Anakin took place, he and Yoda convinced the others that it would be a bad idea to have Anakin spy on the Chancellor. Yoda said that Anakin has come to him with questions about the Force, and he wants to learn directly from him. Obi-Wan argued that Anakin is extremely close to Palpatine, and putting the two of them against each other like this, without any real proof as to Palpatine actually having any relationship with Sidious, will break Anakin. Ultimately, Yoda and Kenobi would come out on top, and as the council members now cleared out of the room, Yoda stood in front of the disgruntled Anakin. Yoda told Anakin that he will earn mastery in time, but the Chancellor is getting too close to Jedi affairs. Anakin didn't respond, and Yoda said that the Jedi and the Senate must remain somewhat separate. They act on the will of the Force, along with the will of the people of this republic, represented by the Senate. Anakin was a bit too frustrated with it all to really care about the politics, so instead Yoda said it's time for them to train. Anakin took a deep breath, and he took in everything around him, both in the Force and with his eyes. The council chambers stood quiet, still, and Anakin sat cross-legged on the polished floor. Yoda could feel his restless energy radiating around the Force. Across from Anakin, he could feel that Yoda remained a calm, steady presence, eyes half closed, as he guided Anakin into the first steps of his understanding. Anakin suddenly found himself somewhat in awe of Yoda. Despite being in charge of a Jedi Order of over 10,000 members fighting in this galactic war, Yoda felt like nothing except perfect peace in the Force. Anakin couldn't believe that was even possible, and now Yoda had Anakin practicing in the Force. The exercise was rather simple in theory. Focus on this present moment, right here, right now. But Anakin's mind raced with fear, doubt for the future. Thoughts of Padme raced through his mind constantly. Even the past weighed heavily on him. It always did, as he remembered Ahsoka, his mother. Each time he attempted to center himself, the visions of Padme's death would resurface, pulling him back into the storm in his mind. Yoda would stay patient. He knew this would not be easy. He could have stretched his mind out into the galaxy. He could have tried to feel the Force elsewhere, but he centered himself here. He felt he owed it to Anakin, as he didn't spend enough time one-on-one with the boy as they grew up in the Order. Anakin got here when he was around 10 years old, and so he wasn't the typical youngling growing up with the others, with Yoda, as so many of the other Jedi did. The hours would continue to pass by, and Yoda's lessons unfolded in layers, leading Anakin deeper into his own introspection. The process was mentally painstaking, as Anakin's frustration often boiled over, emotions flaring up like a burst of uncontrolled fire. Yoda was unshaken, responding with patience, nudging Anakin back on course time and time again. Through breathing exercises, Anakin would learn to identify this fear, allowing it to exist without actually letting it consume him. And though fleeting, moments of clarity would begin to emerge. It was like cracks in the heavy cloud cover that had shrouded his heart. By midnight, the chamber was bathed in the soft glow of Coruscant's city lights. Anakin's progress was incremental, but it was there. Visualizations became the next step as Yoda encouraged him to see the fear as something tangible, a flame that could be observed and extinguished. At first, the effort only intensified his frustration, as Anakin imagined flames, but it was blazing out of control. But with persistence, coupled with Yoda's unwavering guidance, it brought about gradual success, and slowly, Anakin would begin to see this flame shrink away, flicker away, no longer an uncontrollable flame, but a spark that was manageable. And as dawn approached, exhaustion began to creep into Anakin's body and mind. The long hours of self-reflection drained him greatly, and he felt lighter, as though some invisible weight had been lifted. The fear that once consumed Anakin and seemed insurmountable was now distant, more like an echo than a scream, and Yoda's teachings had stripped the fear of its power, revealing the core truth. It was not the death he needed to accept, but the uncertainty of life itself. And when morning light spilled into the chamber, Anakin's body finally succumbed to its weariness. And this was precisely what Yoda had intended. He knew that Anakin was essentially refusing to sleep, as sleep gave him the visions. So, they worked in the Force until Anakin could no longer stay awake. And now, as he was laying on the cool floor, sinking into a deep, exhausted, peaceful sleep, he would find dreams. But they weren't the visions that had haunted Anakin. Those were gone. Instead, it was simply a quiet stillness, an endless field of light, profound connection to the Force. It was not the fear that had just vanished, but instead, Anakin was controlling the fear, getting rid of it completely. And the visions of Padme dying were now simply a memory. But as Anakin began to awaken, there was something at the end of the light, a darkness that was trying its best to seep back in. And Anakin pushed through the darkness to find exactly where it was coming from. Anakin would follow this thread of the Force all the way through Coruscant, and his eyes suddenly went wide as Yoda was in front of him, asking what it is. Anakin looked down to Yoda, and he said, "It's the Sith." Somehow, the Sith Lord had sensed Anakin's shift to the light, and was trying to reverse it. Yoda asked Anakin if he knew where the Sith was, and Anakin said yes. So together, Anakin and Yoda would not waste another second. And in a hidden layer, underneath the Republic Executive Building, Darth Sidious was using his Sith alchemy powers to try and influence the dark side to find Anakin once more. Sidious could feel the currents of the Force flowing, and he had more of a connection to young Skywalker than just about anyone else. So, when Yoda helped sift the darkness out of Anakin's mind, Sidious got right to work. But he pushed too far. His manipulations were revealed to Anakin himself. In this secret lair, Sidious was doing everything he could, and suddenly, the hidden tunnel doors swung open to reveal Anakin. And he was with Yoda. The two Jedi ignited their blades and told Sidious to stand down. His time has run out, and his rule will now end before it can ever truly begin. Sidious closed his eyes, forcing himself to accept that Skywalker would no longer be a part of his plans. This was no matter, and after merely a second, Sidious completely replaced his desire to have Anakin on his side, with him just being another Jedi that must now die as his empire rises. Sidious pulled down his hood, ignited his blade, and held it up to his face, so the Jedi could see the true face of the man who has controlled them for all these years. Anakin gasped in horror, shock, sadness, and betrayal, and with a soulless smile, Sidious quickly would just spin into battle to kill these Jedi. Both Jedi reacted, raising their blades to block the saber strike, and so the Dark Lord raised his hands, unleashing tendrils of lightning, illuminating the chamber in violent blue bursts. Anakin barely blocked it, and he was pushed backwards, while Yoda used his open hand to catch the lightning, absorbing it and redirecting it into the walls. Sidious put away his blade, becoming one with the shadows, robes flowing unnaturally as he darted around the walls, his speed and agility defying anything Anakin had ever seen before. His attacks were relentless, precise, coming at random times, as his red blade ignited at a perfect time to attack. Anakin and Yoda stood together, and the two of them were not backing down, as Sidious's laughter echoed around them, and he tried to bring out their fear. Sidious once more shot lightning at them, and he deflected it off of the walls to try and surround both Jedi in it. Anakin faltered briefly, lightning catching him in the leg, forcing him to drop down to a knee. But Yoda's presence in the Force was powerful. He blocked a killing strike from Sidious aimed directly at Skywalker. Anakin rose back up, and the two Jedi pressed on, movements synchronizing together now, as they began to anticipate the Sith Lord's attacks. Sidious's confidence quickly turned to desperation, blows becoming more erratic as the Jedi were catching on. Anakin would finally twist, kicking Sidious in the face, and send him crashing hard into the wall. Sidious scrambled back to his feet, wiping the blood from his face, and in a final act of defiance, he unleashed a storm of Force energy, the sheer magnitude threatening to collapse the layer around them. Anakin and Yoda drew on the strength of the Force together, combined will forming a shield to catch the collapsing roof. And as Yoda held it together, he told Anakin to finish Sidious before he can escape. And so, Anakin ran in at the Dark Lord. His final swings would sever the Sith's weapon, and Yoda threw the many pounds of debris at Sidious as Anakin struck him down once and for all. He would die here, covered in the ruins of his own base, and Anakin would help Yoda out of the underground area, as citizens had gathered around to see what all of this was about. Seeing Yoda and Anakin together, perhaps the two most famous Jedi in the galaxy, was astounding for the people, and in time, it would be revealed exactly why they were here. Around the galaxy, Obi-Wan Kenobi would defeat General Grievous while all of this was going on, and when he eventually would report into the council from Utapau, he really couldn't believe everything he'd missed. Yoda and Anakin were going over everything, and Windu had now invited a group of senators organizing against Palpatine into the Senate, and they were led by Padme Amidala and Bail Organa. The council would work with these senators to ensure that the truth about Palpatine gets out, and the galaxy understands who was truly in control. And over the course of a few days, the council and the senators would indeed speak to the galaxy, providing proof of who Palpatine truly was, and the Separatist leaders would be arrested so the war could come to an end. The following years in the galaxy would see Yoda's lessons with Anakin only continue, even after the Jedi learned the truth about Anakin's relationship with Padme and the Skywalker twins. The children would enter the Jedi Order at a young age, and Anakin would continue to train under Yoda in order to eventually become the next Grand Master when his time does come. The years would progress with the Jedi prospering in a way that they hadn't since the times of the High Republic, and Chancellor Padme Amidala would allow the Jedi to continue getting Republic funding, but allow them to expand into the galaxy and work without full Senate approval for all of their projects. It was truly a time of peace, without Sidious, Dooku, Maul, Grievous, and with the war being over. The clones worked with the Jedi to bring aid to suffering planets, and Anakin Skywalker would watch over the training of Luke and Leia as Obi-Wan directly trained Leia, while Ahsoka would train Luke. And folks, that is our story for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Yeah, I certainly did. Just going over a bit of what we did here. I wanted to explore the, more emotional side of Revenge of the Sith, because I think maybe the one thing Revenge of the Sith does lack on is just moving past things a little too quickly. And I think one of those key elements is Anakin and Yoda's conversation. I think maybe there could have been more there, or there was more there, or just that Yoda actually didn't have the worst advice, because it's commonly thought that what Yoda told to Anakin just wasn't good enough, and I think that's true. Maybe he could have done more, but he sort of gave Anakin the right lessons. He was just like 900 years old and didn't fully understand exactly what was needed in that moment, so I wanted to explore just both of them diving further into it as a whole. So let me know what you thought of that. But yeah, overall, thought it was good to just have a video with the two of them going on a little journey together, a little mission together, or just training together. So always fun to do Yoda stories like this with Anakin. Yeah, could have done more. Maybe, I don't know. I thought it was good. Maybe with Windu or something, but Windu was in yesterday's. So if you like Windu, go check out yesterday's video. Anyways, appreciate you guys. As always, let me know what you want to see next. We should have another video out tomorrow, so be sure to check that one out. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.